Commander Alexis Garcia stared at the blank communication screen. Her eyes were tired after hours of sending messages toward. The shuttle landed with a soft thud on the dusty Martian surface. Outside the viewport, the red landscape stretched in all directions. The colony domes stood nearby, their white surfaces reflecting the weak sunlight. Air levels normal inside Dome 1, Melissa said, checking her instruments. We can enter without suits, but I recommend keeping emergency brothers with us. Alexis nodded. Alan, you're with me. Peter and Melissa, stay here and keep the shuttle ready for immediate takeoff. Alan checked his weapon one last time before following Alexis toward the airlock. They cycled through and stepped onto Martian soil. Their boots left prints in the fine red dust as they walked toward the main entrance of Dome 1. The door to the dome slid open when they approached. Inside, emergency lighting cast long shadows across empty hallways. The place smelled stale, as if the air recyclers were working at minimum capacity. Hello, Alexis called out. Her voice echoed back to her. Alan pointed to the floor. Footprints. Someone's been walking here recently. They followed the tracks deeper into the dome. The living quarters they passed were empty, with personal items left behind, as if the residents had stepped out for only a moment. Meals sat half-eaten on tables. Clothes lay draped over chairs. It's like everyone just disappeared, Alan whispered. A noise came from ahead, metal scraping against metal. Both of them stopped, hands moving to their weapons. A door at the end of the corridor opened slowly. A man stepped out, thin and haggard. His beard had grown wild, and his jumpsuit hung loose on his frame. He squinted at them in the dim light. Real people, he said, his voice rough from disuse. I hoped the signal would bring help. I'm Commander Garcia of the Vanguard. This is Security Chief Rodriguez. Who are you? Dr. Ethan Morris, colony physician. He looked over his shoulder nervously. We need to talk somewhere safe. Dr. Morris led them to a sealed laboratory in the lower level of the dome. Heavy doors closed behind them with reassuring clicks. This room is shielded, Dr. Morris explained. They can't sense us in here. Alexis shared a look with Alan. Who can't sense us? The observers. Dr. Morris sat down heavily in a chair. They came 8 months ago. First to Earth, then here. He explained between sips of water from a container. Earth had reported strange visitors, tall beings with silver-gray skin who simply watched humans. They never spoke. They just observed. The reports became more frequent. Then suddenly all communication from Earth stopped. The colonial governor ordered a communications blackout, said we shouldn't draw attention. Dr. Morris laughed bitterly. Didn't help. They found us anyway. Just appeared one day inside the domes. What did they do? Alan asked. Nothing. That's what was so strange. They just watched. They would stand near people, look at them. Then, he trailed off. Then what? Alexis pressed. The people they watched changed. Nothing obvious at first. They seemed calmer, more focused. Then they stopped talking about the visitors, as if they couldn't see them anymore. Dr. Morris had hidden when the visitors approached him, locking himself in this lab. Through the security cameras, he watched as his colleagues packed up and left the colony. They all boarded strange vessels. No one seemed afraid. They just went. Where were they taken? Alexis asked. I don't know. The ships left Mars. Maybe back to Earth. He looked up, eyes suddenly wide. Your crew, are they still on your shuttle? Alexis nodded. You need to warn them. The observers, they can appear anywhere. And once they've seen you. The radio on Alexis's belt crackled to life. Melissa's voice came through, tight with fear. Commander, something's happening. Peter just spotted movement outside the shuttle. And there's a strange reading on our sensors. Dr. Morris grabbed Alexis's arm. It's them. They found us. We need to get back to the shuttle, Alan said, already moving toward the door. The doctor shook his head. If they're already there, Your friends may not be the same when you return. What do you mean? Alexis asked. The observers aren't the real threat, Dr. Morris said quietly. It's what happens after they observe you that matters. They're looking for something hiding inside us. The radio crackled again. Peter's voice came through this time. Commander, you need to see this. There's someone, or something, standing just outside the shuttle. Silver skin. Tall. It's just watching us. Alexis and Alan raced through the dome's corridors. Dr. Morris struggled to keep up behind them. Don't run straight to the shuttle, the doctor warned, breathing hard. If the observers are there, your crew might already be compromised. Alan looked back at Alexis. What's the plan, Commander? She slowed her pace, thinking quickly. We need to see what we're dealing with first. There's an observation platform on the east side of the dome. We can look at the shuttle from there. They changed direction, moving through empty labs and living quarters. Everything was still and silent, making their footsteps sound loud in the abandoned spaces. The observation platform gave them a clear view of the landing area. Their shuttle sat where they had left it, but something was very wrong. 3 tall figures with silver-gray skin stood motionless around the vessel. They had no features that Alexis could see clearly at this distance, just smooth, featureless faces. The observers, Dr. Morris whispered. Alexis raised her binoculars. Through them, she could see inside the shuttle cockpit. Melissa sat at the controls, her back perfectly straight. Peter was nowhere to be seen. I need to contact them, Alexis said, reaching for her radio. Dr. Morris grabbed her wrist. Don't. They might hear you. I can't just leave my crew, she said firmly, pulling her arm free. She switched on her radio, keeping the volume low. Melissa, this is Commander Garcia. Can you hear me? Static crackled, then Melissa's voice came through. Commander, you need to return to the shuttle. Our visitors wish to speak with you. Something about Melissa's voice was different. The words were right, but the tone was flat, emotionless. Where's Peter? Alexis asked. Peter is fine. He's speaking with them. Please return immediately. The radio went silent. Alexis looked at Alan, whose hand had moved to his weapon. That doesn't sound like Melissa, he said quietly. No, it doesn't, Alexis agreed. She turned to Dr. Morris. You said these observers were looking for something inside us. What did you mean? The doctor's eyes darted nervously to the window. I've had time to think about it. To study the records, I think there's something living within humanity. Something that's been there a long time. The observers triggered it somehow. What are you talking about? Alan asked, his voice sharp with stress. Think about it, Dr. Morris said. Throughout human history, people have claimed to see things others can't. To hear voices. To be guided by unseen forces. What if those weren't hallucinations? What if something has been hiding inside our minds all along? Before Alexis could respond, her radio crackled again. This time, it was Peter's voice. Commander, please ignore my previous alert. The visitors are friendly. They want to help us understand what happened to Earth. Please come back to the shuttle. His voice, like Melissa's, had that same flat quality. Alexis switched off the radio. We need to get back to the Vanguard. Your ship? Dr. Morris asked. But how? The observers control the shuttle. Not the shuttle, Alan said, catching on to Alexis's thinking. The colony must have emergency vehicles. Dr. Morris nodded slowly. Yes, there's a maintenance rover in the south garage. It has limited space flight capability, enough to reach orbit. Then that's our way out, Alexis decided. Let's go. As they turned to leave, the door to the observation platform slid open. Peter stood there, his face blank. Behind him loomed one of the silver observers, its body impossibly tall and thin. Hello, Commander, Peter said in that emotionless voice. We've been looking for you. Alan drew his weapon, but Alexis put a hand on his arm. Don't, she whispered. That's still Peter. The observer tilted its featureless head, studying them with unseen eyes. Alexis felt a strange pressure in her mind, as if something was trying to look inside her thoughts. Dr. Morris grabbed her arm and pointed to a service door on the far side of the room. "That way," he hissed. "We need to run. Now." Alexis hesitated, looking at Peter, her friend, her crewmate. "Commander," Peter said, "they only want to observe, to find what hides within." The pressure in her mind increased. Alexis shook her head to clear it. "Now," Dr. Morris shouted, pulling her toward the door as Alan moved to block Peter's path. Alan moved quickly, pushing a heavy storage container to block Peter's path. The observer behind Peter didn't react, simply watching with its featureless face. "This way," Dr. Morris called, holding open the service door. Alexis hesitated for just a moment, looking back at Peter, her friend who now seemed like a stranger. "We'll come back for them," she promised herself before following Dr. Morris through the door. The service corridors were narrow and dimly lit. They ran through them, taking turns that Dr. Morris seemed to know by heart. Behind them, they could hear Peter calling in that flat voice, asking them to stop. "The south garage is just ahead," Dr. Morris panted. "The rover should be fueled and ready." They burst through a final door into a large garage area. Several vehicles sat parked in neat rows. Dr. Morris pointed to a boxy machine with large wheels and a bubble cockpit. "That's it, the orbital rover." As they ran toward it, Alan suddenly stopped. "Commander, look." On the far side of the garage, a figure stood watching them. It wasn't Peter or Melissa. It was another colonist, a woman with blank eyes. "Helen Scott," Dr. Morris whispered. "She was the colony's engineer. I thought she left with the others." Helen began walking toward them, her movements stiff and unnatural. "You need to stay," she said in the same flat tone they'd heard from Peter. "The process has begun. They only want to observe." "What process?" Alexis demanded. "What are they looking for?" Helen's head tilted slightly. "The final ones. The ones who hide. The ones who run." Dr. Morris pulled Alexis's arm. "We don't have time for this. The rover is our only chance." They reached the vehicle, and Dr. Morris quickly opened its door. The controls inside were simple, designed for emergency use by anyone in the colony. "I can fly this," Alexis said, examining the panel. "It's not that different from our landing shuttle." Alan looked back. Helen was still walking toward them. And now Peter had entered the garage as well. Behind him loomed the tall, silver observer. "We need to go now," Alan urged. Dr. Morris climbed into the back of the rover, while Alexis took the pilot's seat. Alan stayed outside for a moment longer, his weapon aimed at the approaching figures. "Alan, get in," Alexis called. He backed up to the rover and climbed in, never taking his eyes off the observer. The door sealed shut behind him just as Helen reached the vehicle. She pressed her hands against the window, her face expressionless. Alexis powered up the rover. Its engines hummed to life, and the controls lit up. "Everyone strap in," she ordered. "This might be rough." The garage doors were closed, but Dr. Morris pointed to a control panel on the dashboard. "Emergency launch protocol. It will open the doors and clear our path." Alexis pressed the button. Alarms began to sound throughout the garage. The large doors at the far end slowly began to open, revealing the red Martian landscape beyond. "They're not trying to stop us," Alan observed, looking at Helen and Peter, who simply stood watching. "They don't need to," Dr. Morris said quietly. "The observers aren't worried about us leaving. They've already found what they were looking for on Mars." The rover shot forward, its wheels spinning on the smooth garage floor before finding traction. They sped past Helen and Peter, who turned in unison to watch them go. The observer didn't move at all. As they burst through the garage doors onto the Martian surface, Alexis looked up at the sky. The Vanguard was up there somewhere, their only way back to warn the other human colonies. "The rover can reach orbit, But can it dock with the Vanguard? She asked Dr. Morris. Yes, it has standard docking capabilities. But his voice trailed off. But what? Alan prompted. The observers might already be there too. They can appear anywhere, it seems. Alexis gripped the controls tighter. We'll deal with that problem when we reach it. Right now, we need to get off this planet. She activated the rover's special thrusters. The vehicle shuddered as it began to lift off the ground. Through the front viewport, they could see the colony domes growing smaller beneath them. Look, Ellen pointed back at the colony. Several silver figures now stood outside the domes, their faces turned upward, watching the rover climb toward space. Even from this distance, Alexis felt a chill, as if those featureless faces could still see her clearly. They're letting us go, she said softly. But why? The rover shook as it pushed through the thin Martian atmosphere. Alexis kept her hand steady on the controls, guiding them toward where the Vanguard waited in orbit. The stars grew brighter as the sky darkened around them. There she is, Alexis said as the ship came into view. The Vanguard looked untouched, floating peacefully above Mars. Any signs of the observers? Alan asked, scanning the area around the ship. Dr. Morris checked the rover's simple sensor display. Nothing showing up, but that doesn't mean much. They don't always register on our equipment. Alexis opened a communication channel. Vanguard, this is Commander Garcia. Do you copy? Silence. She tried again. Vanguard, please respond. After a long moment, a voice answered. It was Melissa still speaking in that flat tone. Commander Garcia, we are waiting for you. Alan and Alexis exchanged worried looks. We need a plan, Alan said quietly. We can't just dock and walk into whatever is waiting for us. Dr. Morris leaned forward from the back seat. The rover has spacesuits in a storage compartment. We could use them to enter through the emergency airlock on the ship's underside. Good thinking, Alexis said. Melissa might not know about that entrance. It's only used for repairs. As they approached the Vanguard, they could see no movement through the ship's windows. It looked empty, but they knew Melissa was inside, and possibly Peter too. Alexis carefully maneuvered the rover beneath the ship, out of view from the main windows. They quickly put on the spacesuits stored in the rover. These suits have only 30 minutes of air, Dr. Morris warned. We need to move fast. Alexis nodded. Once we're inside, we head straight to the bridge. We need to secure the ship. They exited the rover through its small airlock and pushed off toward the Vanguard's emergency hatch. Alan reached it first and entered the code to open it. The door slid open silently. One by one, they pulled themselves into the ship. The emergency airlock led to a narrow maintenance tunnel. They moved through it quietly, listening for any sounds above the soft hum of the ship's systems. Something's wrong, Alexis whispered as they reached the end of the tunnel. The ship feels different. Ellen checked his weapon. Different how? I don't know. Just wrong. They emerged into a corridor near the engine room. The lights were dimmed to night cycle levels, casting long shadows across the walls. The bridge is 2 levels up, Alexis said. Let's go. They moved cautiously through the ship, checking each corner before advancing. Everything was quiet, too quiet for a functioning spaceship. When they reached the level below the bridge, Dr. Morris suddenly grabbed Alexis's arm. Wait, he whispered. Look at the walls. Alexis hadn't noticed it before, but now she saw what had caught his attention. The walls of the ship had strange markings on them, symbols that looked like nothing she had ever seen before. Those weren't there when we left, Alan said, running his hand over one of the symbols. It seemed to shimmer slightly under his touch. They're all over the ship, Dr. Morris observed. What are they? Before Alexis could answer, a sound came from ahead, footsteps approaching their position. They quickly ducked into a storage room and closed the door most of the way, leaving a small crack to see through. Melissa walked past their hiding spot. She moved stiffly, her eyes fixed straight ahead. Behind her floated something that made Alexis's blood run cold. It wasn't an observer. It was something else entirely. A swirling mass of light that vaguely resembled a human shape. It pulsed with energy as it moved. "What is that?" Alan whispered, his hand tightening on his weapon. Dr. Morris's face had gone pale behind his helmet visor. I think that's what they're hunting. The thing that's been hiding inside us. Inside Melissa," Alexis corrected. "That thing is inside her now." "No," Dr. Morris shook his head. "It's not inside her anymore. Look at how it's following her. I think the observer's presence forced it out into the open. It can't hide anymore." They watched as Melissa and the light being turned a corner and disappeared from view. "Now we know why Earth went silent," Alexis said quietly. "And why the observers let us leave Mars." "Why?" Alan asked. "Because they wanted us to lead them here," she replied. "To the vanguard. They're not invaders or colonizers. They're hunters. And whatever that light thing is, that's their prey." Alexis, Alan, and Dr. Morris remained hidden in the storage room, trying to process what they had just seen. "If these light beings have been hiding inside humans," Alexis whispered, "for how long? And why?" Dr. Morris looked thoughtful behind his helmet visor. "Think about human history. Stories of God speaking to people. Guardian angels. Voices in dreams. What if those weren't myths? You're saying these light beings have been living inside us forever?" Alan asked. "Maybe not forever, but for thousands of years at least," Dr. Morris replied. "Maybe they found us long ago. Maybe they needed us." A soft noise from the corridor made them all freeze. Peter walked past their hiding spot, moving with the same stiff motions as Melissa. No light being followed him. "Why doesn't Peter have one of those things with him?" Alan whispered once Peter was gone. "Maybe his is still hiding," Alexis suggested. "Or maybe not everyone has one." Dr. Morris shook his head. "I think they're choosing who to reveal themselves through. Look at the symbols on the walls. I bet those are their language." Alexis checked the time display in her helmet. "We have 15 minutes of air left. We need to get to the bridge and take control of the ship." They slipped out of the storage room and moved carefully toward the ladder that would take them up to the bridge level. The symbols on the walls seemed to grow more numerous as they climbed. At the top, they paused at the closed bridge door. Through the small window, they could see Melissa standing at the main console. There was no sign of the light being or Peter. "I'll go in first," Alan said, readying his weapon. "You two follow when I give the signal." Alexis nodded. "Be careful. That's still Melissa in there, even if she's not herself." Alan took a deep breath and pushed the door open. He stepped onto the bridge with his weapon raised. "Don't move, Melissa." Melissa turned slowly. Her eyes were different now. They glowed with a soft blue light. "You should not have come back," she said, her voice overlapping with another, deeper sound. Alexis and Dr. Morris entered the bridge behind Alan. Alexis moved toward the pilot's station, while keeping her eyes on Melissa. "What are you?" Alexis asked directly. "Why have you been hiding inside us?" Melissa's head tilted in a way that seemed inhuman. "We are the symbionts. We have lived with your species since your earliest days. We guided you. Protected you." "Protected us from what?" Alan demanded. "From them. The hunters. The ones you call observers." Melissa's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. "They have chased us across 1,000 worlds. Earth was our sanctuary for many cycles of your sun." Dr. Morris stepped forward. "Why did Earth go silent? When the hunters found us, we had to protect ourselves. We closed Earth. No signals to draw more hunters. No communications to track." Alexis reached the pilot's chair and quickly checked the ship's status. Everything seemed operational. "And the people on Mars? Where did they go?" "Back to Earth. The controlled ones bring more humans to us. We need more vessels." The word vessels sent a chill through Alexis. "You're using people as hiding places." "As partners," Melissa corrected, the alien voice becoming stronger. We give knowledge, guidance. In return, we survive. Alan kept his weapon steady, and the people have no choice. Some resist, most accept. The union is beneficial to both. Dr. Morris looked fascinated despite the danger. All those stories about gods and spirits, that was you communicating with us. Yes, we have been with you through your development. We are why you look to the stars, why you built ships like this one. Melissa's glowing eyes fixed on Alexis. Why you found us again when we needed new vessels. Suddenly, the ship's alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed across the bridge. What's happening? Ellen shouted over the noise. Alexis checked the console. Something's approaching the ship, multiple objects coming from Mars. On the view screen, they could see what looked like small pieces of the observer beings, silver fragments flying through space toward the Vanguard. They come, Melissa said, her voice now entirely that of the symbiont. The final hunt begins. Peter burst onto the bridge, his eyes now glowing like Melissa's. We must leave this system immediately. They will not stop until they have found all of us. Alexis looked from Melissa to Peter, her friends, now vessels for ancient beings that had apparently been guiding humanity from the shadows. Who are you really? She asked. And what happens to my crew if I help you escape? Melissa stepped closer to Alexis, her blue glowing eyes intense. Your friends are still here, Commander. We share their bodies, their minds. We do not replace them. She's telling the truth, Peter added, his voice also carrying that strange double tone. I'm still me, but I'm also more now. I can see things I never could before. Alexis looked at Alan, who still kept his weapon raised. Dr. Morris was staring at the view screen, watching as the silver fragments grew closer. We don't have time for this, the doctor said. Those things will reach us in minutes. Alexis made her decision. I'll get us out of here, but I want answers once we're safe. She slid into the pilot's seat and began the launch sequence. The Vanguard's engines hummed to life. The hunters will follow, Melissa warned. They have tracked us across galaxies. Ellen finally lowered his weapon. Why not just fight them? There are more humans than these observer things. Peter shook his head. The hunters cannot be killed by physical weapons. They exist partially in another dimension. That's why they appear and disappear. The ship shuddered as Alexis engaged the main thrusters. The Vanguard pulled away from Mars' orbit, accelerating rapidly. Set course away from Earth, Melissa said urgently. We cannot lead them back there. No, Alexis countered. We need to warn Earth about what's happening. Earth already knows, Peter explained. When the hunters arrived, we revealed ourselves to many humans. Most accepted us. Those who didn't were isolated. Dr. Morris frowned. You imprisoned people who refused to become vessels. Protected them, Melissa corrected. The hunters cannot distinguish between humans with symbionts and those without. They would examine all. On the view screen, the silver fragments had changed course to follow the Vanguard. They were moving impossibly fast, gaining on the ship despite its powerful engines. They're catching up, Alan observed, tension in his voice. Alexis pushed the engines harder. What happens if they catch us? They will extract the symbionts, Peter said. The process is painful for the host. Few survive. And then they'll keep hunting, Melissa added, until every symbiont is found. The ship rocked suddenly as something hit the hull. Alarms blared throughout the bridge. They're attacking the ship. Alan moved to the weapons console. Do we have anything that can fight them? No conventional weapon will work, Peter warned. The lights on the bridge flickered, then stabilized. On the security monitors, they could see silver shapes moving through the ship's corridors. They're inside, Dr. Morris said, fear clear in his voice. Melissa and Peter exchanged looks, their glowing eyes communicating something silently. There is a way, Melissa said finally, but it requires sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? Alexis asked. Some of us must reveal ourselves fully. Leave our hosts. Distract the hunters. That would kill the hosts, Peter added quietly. Alexis shook her head firmly. No, I won't let you sacrifice my crew. There must be another way, Dr. Morris said. What about the ship's neural interface? Melissa was connected to it when we first returned. Peter's eyes widened. Yes, the symbionts can transfer to technological systems temporarily. Another impact rocked the ship. The security monitors showed the silver shapes getting closer to the bridge. Do it, Alexis ordered. Transfer to the ship's computers if you can. Melissa moved to the neural interface station and placed her hands on the connection pads. Her eyes glowed brighter, and the ship's lights pulsed in rhythm with the glow. I am connecting, she said, her voice becoming more mechanical. The ship will accept us. Peter joined her, placing his hands on another set of pads. Others are joining from throughout the ship. The collective is forming. The symbols that had appeared on the walls began to glow with the same blue light as Melissa and Peter's eyes. The ship's engines suddenly surged with power, pushing everyone back in their seats. What's happening? Alan shouted over the noise of the straining engines. The view screen showed the stars stretching into lines as the Vanguard accelerated beyond its designed limits. The symbionts are boosting the ship's systems, Dr. Morris realized. They're making it faster than it should be. Melissa's body slumped in her chair, but her voice came through the ship's speakers. We are the ship now. The hunters cannot follow where we go. Where are we going? Alexis asked, no longer in control of the vessel. To warn the others, the voice replied. The human colonies must know what comes for them. The Vanguard moved through space faster than any human ship had ever traveled. Stars blurred past on the view screen as Alexis, Alan, and Dr. Morris watched in amazement. Melissa and Peter sat motionless in their chairs, their bodies empty vessels while their symbiont partners controlled the ship. Are they still alive? Alexis asked Dr. Morris, looking at her crew members with concern. The doctor checked their vital signs. Yes, they're alive, just in a deep sleep state. Their brains show activity, but it's unusual, like they're dreaming intensely. The ship's speakers crackled. We are approaching the colony at Europa. The collected voice of the symbionts announced. We must warn them before the hunters follow. How much time do we have? Alan asked. The hunters will be delayed, but not stopped. Perhaps one of your Earth days. Alexis stood up and walked to the view screen. Jupiter's moon Europa came into view, its icy surface gleaming. The human colony there was small, only a few hundred people living in habitats beneath the moon's frozen crust. What exactly are we warning them about? She asked. That they need to accept symbionts or be hunted. No, the voice replied. They must choose, as all humans must choose. The ship slowed as it approached Europa orbit. On the surface, lights from the colony shone through the ice. The choice is this, the voice continued. Accept us and join the flight, or hide and hope the hunters pass you by. That's no real choice, Alan argued. Either become vessels or be left defenseless. There is a third option. The ship's screens displayed a new image, a star map showing systems far beyond Earth's. Come with us. Leave this system entirely, humans and symbionts together, finding a new home beyond the hunter's reach. Dr. Morris studied the map. These are systems we've never explored. How would we even get there? We have knowledge your science does not yet possess. Together, we could build ships capable of the journey. Melissa and Peter suddenly gasped and opened their eyes. The blue glow had dimmed but was still visible. They're coming back, Melissa said weakly. We couldn't maintain the link for longer. Peter looked at Alexis. Did you understand what they showed you? What they're offering? Alexis nodded slowly. A partnership. A way out. But what about the people who don't want symbionts? Alan asked. What happens to them? Peter looked sad. The hunters don't distinguish. They'll examine everyone. Those without symbionts will survive the process, but those with them won't. Alexis finished. The ship established orbit around Europa. Communications from the colony began coming through, surprised voices asking about their unexpected arrival. "We need to decide now," Melissa said urgently. "Do we warn them about everything? Do we tell them to run? Or do we offer them the symbionts?" Dr. Morris spoke up. "They deserve the truth. All of it. Let them decide for themselves." Alexis agreed. "Open a channel to the colony." As the connection was established, Alexis looked at her small crew, humans and symbionts together now, caught in a cosmic conflict they never knew existed until days ago. "This is Commander Alexis Garcia of the scout ship Vanguard," she began. "I'm contacting you with urgent information about Earth and a threat approaching our system." She explained everything. The observers, the symbionts, the ancient hunt that had finally reached humanity. She told them about the choice they faced: become hosts to the symbionts, hide and hope, or join the exodus to distant stars. When she finished, there was silence from the colony. Then a voice responded, "How much time do we have to decide?" "Less than a day," Alexis answered honestly. "And after Europa, we need to warn the other colonies." The colony leader's voice was steady. "We'll need to vote. Can you send representatives down to answer questions?" Alexis looked at her crew. Melissa and Peter nodded. "Yes," she replied. "We're coming down." As they prepared to descend to the colony, Alexis gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the hunters were following. And beyond them were unknown systems that might become humanity's new home. "We've always wondered if we were alone in the universe," Dr. Morris said, standing beside her. "Now we know we never were. And now we have to decide," Alexis added, "if our future lies with the beings who've been hiding among us all along."